They are not trying to destroy you. If they wanted open conflict, they would have chosen force. What they want is something far more efficient. Access. Access to your emotions, your reactions, your timing, your inner balance. Machiavelli warned that the greatest danger is not the enemy who attacks, but the enemy who observes. Observation turns behavior into strategy. Once your reactions are known, your future moves stop being yours. Most people believe enemies act out of hatred. That belief blinds them. Enemies act out of calculation. They provoke not to fight, but to measure. They delay not to hesitate, but to see how quickly you panic. They remain silent, not because they are weak, but because they want to watch how much noise you make in discomfort. In Machiavellian terms, every emotional response is a confession. It reveals position, insecurity, and appetite for control. Power is lost the moment you become readable. The moment your anger appears on schedule, your explanations arrive on demand, and your emotions follow predictable patterns, you stop being a threat. Machiavelli understood that men are not ruled by force alone, but by expectation. When your enemy knows what you will do next, resistance becomes unnecessary. They simply guide you toward outcomes you think you chose. This is why most people lose without realizing they were ever in a game. They believe reacting proves strength, that defending proves innocence, that speaking proves confidence. In reality, reaction places you inside another person's tempo. Defense accepts their frame. Speech gives them material. Machiavelli wrote that authority belongs to those who cannot be easily interpreted. Ambiguity is not confusion, it is protection. This video is not about motivation or self-belief. It is about strategic invisibility. It is about removing emotional access so completely that your enemies are forced to operate without feedback. When feedback disappears, certainty collapses. When certainty collapses, mistakes follow. The enemy begins to escalate not because you threaten them, but because they no longer understand you. Machiavelli never advised seeking love or fairness in power struggles. He advised control of perception, distance from impulse, and mastery over timing. He understood that those who rush to clarify lose advantage, and those who crave resolution surrender leverage. The mind that demands to be understood is easy to rule. The mind that withholds becomes ungovernable. By the end of this video, you will not feel inspired. You will feel insulated. You will understand how enemies test emotional boundaries, how silence functions as pressure, how delay rewrites hierarchy, and why denying closure destabilizes even confident opponents. This is not about winning arguments or dominating others. It is about becoming strategically unreachable. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments before we move forward. I am unreadable. Number 1. Enemies aim for emotional control, not direct conflict. Enemies rarely move toward open collision because direct force is expensive. It exposes intent, creates resistance, and invites consequences. Machiavelli observed that intelligent opponents prefer influence over impact. They aim to guide behavior without appearing responsible for it. Emotional access achieves this silently. Once they enter your emotional space, they no longer need to oppose you, they can steer you. The first objective is never victory. It is permission. Permission to disturb your inner balance. Permission to affect your mood. Permission to shape your decisions indirectly. Provocation is the entry tool. A remark, a delay, a gesture, a withdrawal. Each is calibrated to see whether it can disturb your internal order. The moment you respond emotionally, the door opens. From that point forward, they are no longer guessing. They are adjusting. Hierarchy is not established through dominance alone. It is established through control of emotional flow. The individual who sets the emotional direction defines the structure of interaction. When you become irritated, defensive, rushed, or eager to correct misunderstanding, you are no longer choosing your actions freely. You are responding inside someone else's design. Machiavelli understood that influence is strongest when the influenced believes they are acting independently. Most people misunderstand provocation. They think it is meant to insult. It is not. It is meant to extract information. Emotional spikes reveal pressure points. Calm moments reveal expectations. Sudden reactions expose attachment. From these signals, a behavioral map is formed. Once mapped, manipulation becomes efficient. There is no need for repeated pressure. The enemy simply presses where response is guaranteed. Machiavelli once said, "Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims for his deceits." Emotional needs create obedience. The desire to be respected, understood, or justified becomes leverage. When those needs are visible, they can be exploited without force. The enemy no longer needs to confront you. They only need to stimulate the right internal response. Control is rarely loud. It operates through rhythm. Who speaks first? Who waits? Who rushes? Who explains? Who reacts? These subtle shifts decide rank. The person who loses emotional balance first accepts a lower position without realizing it. From that moment, interactions are no longer equal. One side probes, the other side adjusts. One side leads, the other side follows. This is why emotional discipline is not restraint. It is defense. When emotions remain inaccessible, leverage disappears. Without leverage, enemies are forced into visibility. They must escalate openly or withdraw. Both outcomes expose them. Machiavelli advised rulers to avoid becoming dependent on emotional exchange because dependence invites control. Independence, even when silent, creates uncertainty. Once you understand that enemies seek emotional authority rather than confrontation, behavior changes. You stop responding to irritation. You stop correcting assumptions. You stop explaining motives. Instead, you observe. You allow pressure to exist without relief. The enemy, deprived of feedback, begins to question their position. Anxiety replaces confidence. Initiative weakens. The critical shift is recognizing that emotional neutrality is not passivity. It is refusal. Refusal to be positioned. Refusal to be measured. Refusal to provide material. When emotions are unavailable, strategic control dissolves. The enemy no longer interacts with a person. They interact with a wall. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My emotions are inaccessible. Number 2, refuse reaction to break their leverage. Reaction is never neutral. The instant you respond, you surrender initiative. Machiavelli understood that power belongs to the one who acts by choice, not by impulse. Reaction places you inside a structure you did not design. It forces movement on terms that were decided before you were aware a game had begun. Once you react, you confirm relevance. You signal that something outside you has authority over your internal state. Every response carries information. Tone reveals priority. Speed reveals urgency. Words reveal intention. Silence after provocation reveals strength, but speech reveals shape. Enemies watch closely for these signals because they remove uncertainty. Uncertainty is dangerous for them. Clarity is safety. When you react, you make their calculations easier. You shorten their decision tree. You turn complexity into predictability. The first person to respond always occupies the weaker position. This is not social theory, it is structural reality. Response implies adjustment. Adjustment implies dependence. Leadership does not explain itself in real time. Authority does not rush to clarify. Machiavelli noted that those who hurry to defend appear guilty even when innocent, because urgency signals imbalance. Balance is the foundation of command. Most people believe reaction demonstrates confidence. In truth, it demonstrates exposure. Exposure creates access. Access creates control. When someone knows exactly how to elicit a reply, they can pace you, they can exhaust you, they can redirect you. Reaction hands them a steering wheel. From that point onward, you are not navigating, you are correcting. Refusal to react disrupts this entire mechanism. When no response arrives, the enemy is left without confirmation. Their assumptions remain untested. Their pressure floats without landing. This absence creates discomfort because control requires feedback. Without feedback, certainty erodes. The enemy begins to second-guess timing, meaning, and impact. Their confidence weakens not because you attacked, but because you did not comply. Machiavellian power often appears passive to the untrained eye. In reality, it is selective engagement. Reactionlessness is not indifference. It is discipline. It is the conscious decision to deny access. When you do not respond, you are not avoiding conflict. You are forcing it to collapse under its own weight. Provocation requires participation. Without it, the provoker is exposed. Non-response also reverses psychological burden. Instead of you managing emotion, the enemy must manage uncertainty. Silence becomes a mirror. They project motives. They imagine strategies. They fill gaps with fear. This internal noise leads to overreach. Overreach creates mistakes. Machiavelli understood that enemies defeat themselves when deprived of clarity. Confusion invites error faster than resistance. Refusing reaction also preserves internal authority. You remain centered. Your decisions are not rushed. Your actions remain deliberate. This separation between stimulus and behavior is the core of dominance. When action follows intention rather than impulse, power consolidates naturally. No announcement is needed. Control becomes visible through consistency, not display. There is another consequence enemies rarely anticipate. When reactions disappear, interest fades. Manipulation depends on effect. If no effect is produced, effort feels wasted. The enemy either escalates openly or disengages entirely. Both outcomes favor you. Escalation reveals intent. Withdrawal confirms loss of influence. In both cases, leverage dissolves. Machiavelli warned that those who show their inner workings invite interference. Reaction exposes machinery. Stillness hides it. The one who cannot be moved cannot be managed. This is why refusal to react is not weakness. It is insulation. It places distance between you and external pressure. Distance creates freedom. Freedom creates choice. Power begins when reaction ends. Number 3. Use silence as active psychological pressure. Silence is often misunderstood as emptiness. In reality, it is density without direction. Machiavelli understood that what is undefined becomes feared, and what is feared gains weight. Silence removes reference points. When there is no verbal signal, no emotional cue, no visible intent, the opposing mind is forced inward. The pressure does not disappear. It multiplies. Speech resolves tension. Silence preserves it. Enemies rely on resolution because resolution restores control. When you speak, even briefly, you anchor interpretation. When you remain silent, interpretation spirals. the enemy begins assigning meaning where none was offered. That meaning is shaped by their own insecurity, not your intent. This is where imbalance forms. Silence functions as an active force because it denies orientation. Without orientation, timing breaks down. Enemies hesitate, advance incorrectly, or withdraw too early. Each move reveals dependence on feedback. Machiavelli recognized that uncertainty weakens resolve faster than opposition. A visible enemy can be prepared for, an unreadable one cannot. There is a hierarchy within communication. Those who speak often are responding. Those who speak last define reality. Those who remain silent entirely exist outside the frame. Silence lifts you above exchange. You are no longer participating. You are being observed. Observation shifts gravity. The observed becomes reactive. The observer becomes central. Machiavelli once said, "Whoever is the cause of another becoming powerful ruins himself." Silence prevents others from gaining power over you. When you offer nothing, no advantage can be extracted. When you withhold explanation, no leverage is formed. Silence blocks the transfer of authority that speech often creates without awareness. The human mind resists open loops. It seeks completion. Silence creates a loop with no exit. That unresolved state produces internal noise. Questions repeat. Assumptions multiply. The enemy becomes preoccupied not with action, but with interpretation. While they are busy constructing meaning, you remain unmoved. This psychological pressure increases over time. Silence does not need reinforcement. It compounds naturally. The longer it persists, the heavier it feels. Enemies may initially interpret it as weakness. That illusion fades quickly when no collapse follows. Confusion turns into doubt. Doubt turns into anxiety. Anxiety leads to exposure. Silence also removes emotional symmetry. When one side expresses urgency and the other remains still, imbalance becomes visible. Emotional effort without return feels humiliating. It signals dependency. The enemy becomes aware, often subconsciously, that they are investing energy into someone who does not reciprocate. This awareness erodes confidence. Strategic silence is not withdrawal, it is positioning. You are present without engagement, available without access, visible without explanation. This position is difficult to challenge because it lacks surface. Attacks slide off. Questions fall unanswered. Pressure rebounds onto the source. Machiavelli advised leaders to avoid unnecessary explanation because explanation invites judgment. Silence invites projection instead. Projection exposes the enemy's inner landscape. Their fears surface through speculation. Their priorities reveal themselves through escalation. You learn without revealing. When silence becomes consistent, it changes status. Others begin adjusting around it. Conversations slow. Expectations shift. Your stillness becomes a reference point. This is psychological gravity. It does not demand attention. It attracts it. Silence also protects timing. Words lock you into moments. Silence keeps options open. When you do speak, it carries weight because it arrives after absence. Absence sharpens presence. Machiavelli understood that scarcity increases value. Silence creates scarcity of access. The key is discipline. Silence must be intentional, not emotional. It is not avoidance. It is refusal to feed uncertainty with clarity. Once mastered, silence becomes pressure without aggression, influence without motion, control without effort. The unreadable individual becomes the center of reaction. Others orbit, adjust, and overthink. You remain unchanged. That is the power of silence. Number 4, control time to control outcomes. Time is the most underestimated instrument of power. Machiavelli understood that whoever dictates tempo dictates behavior. Urgency is rarely natural. It is manufactured to compress judgment, weaken discernment, and force premature commitment. When pressure accelerates the clock, mistakes follow. Those who accept imposed speed surrender control before realizing it has been taken. Enemies introduce haste to limit choice. Rapid decisions feel decisive, yet they often serve the initiator. Speed benefits the one who prepared earlier. The one who rushes is already behind. Machiavelli warned that impulsive action pleases adversaries because it replaces strategy with momentum. Momentum can be redirected, intention cannot. Delay is not indecision, it is disruption. When you slow the exchange, you fracture expectation. Enemies plan sequences based on predicted response windows. When those windows collapse, structure fails. They are forced to wait. Waiting transfers emotional weight. Anticipation breeds tension. Tension degrades clarity. Time asymmetry establishes hierarchy. The individual who is comfortable waiting signals independence. The individual who demands immediacy reveals need. Need creates vulnerability. Machiavelli recognized that authority appears calm because it does not fear loss through delay. Anxiety belongs to those who feel they might lose advantage if control is not maintained. Refusing urgency destabilizes opponents because it denies completion. Their strategy remains unfinished. They are left holding pressure with no outlet. As time extends, their emotional investment increases. This investment clouds judgment. Decisions become reactive. The longer they wait, the more they want resolution. Desire for resolution is leverage. Long pauses followed by brief action create imbalance. The pause amplifies impact. When response finally arrives, it feels heavier. It feels deliberate. It suggests thought, not reaction. Machiavelli understood that perception matters more than effort. A measured response signals dominance regardless of content. Enemies attempt to control tempo through deadlines, demands, and implied consequences. These tactics rely on fear of loss. When you ignore imposed timelines, you redefine stakes. Loss becomes theirs. The initiative they attempted to secure dissolves. Their urgency exposes dependency. There is also a strategic advantage in letting situations mature. Early movement reveals little. Late movement reveals patterns. By waiting, you gather information without offering any. The enemy shows impatience, shifts tone, and reveals priorities. Each adjustment exposes motive. Machiavelli valued patience because it allowed others to reveal themselves fully before engagement. Time also protects positioning. Immediate action locks you into context. Delay keeps position fluid. When circumstances shift, delayed actors retain flexibility. Those who moved early must defend their choice. Defense drains power. Waiting preserves optionality. Machiavelli observed that rulers who rushed lost authority because they appeared controlled by events rather than directing them. Those who waited appeared sovereign. Sovereignty is recognized through calm pacing. Calm pacing signals command over outcome. Controlling time also neutralizes manipulation. Manipulation requires synchronization. When timing is disrupted, influence weakens. The manipulator cannot align pressure effectively. Their attempts feel mistimed. Mistiming erodes credibility. There is a psychological cost to waiting that many underestimate. Waiting creates internal friction. Thoughts loop. Confidence erodes. Enemies begin doubting assumptions. Doubt leads to overcorrection. Overcorrection reveals weakness. This process unfolds naturally without your involvement. The discipline to control time requires internal stability. It requires tolerance for uncertainty. Most people rush because silence feels uncomfortable. Machiavellian power tolerates discomfort because it understands its function. Discomfort transferred is leverage gained. When you dictate tempo, you decide when meaning appears. You decide when action matters. You decide when engagement begins. This authority eliminates the need for force. Control of time restructures interactions silently. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I control the pace. Number 5. Break the enemy's expectations. Enemies do not prepare for truth. They prepare for habit. Machiavelli understood that anticipation is built on pattern, not reality. The mind seeks shortcuts, and repetition creates those shortcuts. Once a pattern is assumed, planning becomes comfortable. Comfort dulls alertness. When an enemy believes they know how you will behave, they stop thinking critically. This is the opening. Expectation functions like a script. It tells them when you will respond, how you will react, and what form resistance will take. That script becomes their safety net. They lean on it without realizing it. When behavior suddenly diverges from that script, confusion replaces confidence. Confusion interrupts execution. Execution failure creates vulnerability. Predictability is not always weakness. Machiavelli never advised constant chaos. He advised control. There are moments when consistency lowers suspicion and reduces friction. Stability can be camouflage. The danger appears when consistency becomes identity. Once behavior is assumed to be fixed, it can be exploited repeatedly. The enemy stops adapting. They simply repeat what worked before. Breaking expectation is not randomness. Randomness lacks intent. Strategic deviation is precise. It occurs at decisive moments, not constantly. When pressure peaks and a familiar response is expected, deviation carries maximum impact. The enemy commits to a move based on assumption. When that assumption fails, they hesitate. Hesitation fractures momentum. Machiavelli once said, "A prince should not depart from good if possible, but know how to enter into evil when forced by necessity." This was not moral advice. It was strategic flexibility. The lesson is adaptability under pressure. When expectation locks behavior, flexibility becomes dominance. Enemies rely on emotional prediction as well. They assume irritation, explanation, retreat, or escalation. When none appear, their model collapses. They must rebuild understanding mid-interaction. Rebuilding consumes attention. Attention diverted from execution produces mistakes. This is how expectation failure translates into advantage. There is also a psychological cost to being wrong. When an enemy's forecast fails, doubt appears. Doubt weakens future predictions. Confidence erodes incrementally. Once doubt sets in, even correct assumptions feel uncertain. This instability lingers. One broken expectation infects the next encounter. Strategic inconsistency also disrupts manipulation. Manipulation requires reliable cause and effect. When actions stop producing expected reactions, influence weakens. The manipulator loses calibration. They over-adjust. Over-adjustment exposes intent. Exposure eliminates subtlety. Machiavelli understood that appearing simple while being complex is power. Enemies relax when they think they understand you. That relaxation is dangerous for them. When complexity reveals itself unexpectedly, response time collapses. They are forced to think under pressure rather than act. Expectation also governs escalation. Enemies decide how far to go based on predicted resistance. If resistance suddenly shifts form or disappears, escalation misfires. They either advance too far or retreat too early. Both errors create opportunity. Breaking expectation does not require dramatic action. Sometimes absence is enough. Sometimes restraint is the deviation. Sometimes calm replaces intensity. Sometimes delay replaces speed. The key is contrast. The greater the contrast between what is expected and what occurs, the stronger the psychological impact. There is a deeper effect as well. When enemies cannot rely on prediction, they become cautious. Caution slows initiative. Initiative loss transfers advantage. They wait, they hesitate, they observe instead of act. In that pause, control shifts. Machiavelli valued adaptability because rigid minds collapse under changing conditions. Flexibility keeps power mobile. Mobility prevents entrapment. When behavior cannot be mapped, strategy cannot be finalized. The enemy remains perpetually incomplete. Expectation is a comfort. Removing it creates instability. Instability weakens structure. Structure failure ends dominance. By controlling when and how expectations are broken, you dictate the psychological terrain. The moment the enemy realizes they no longer understand you, the balance tilts. They are no longer playing the game they prepared for. They are reacting to one they cannot define. Number 6. Deny closure to collapse, their mental stability. The human mind is not built to tolerate unfinished narratives. Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology named it. People seek resolution because resolution restores order. When order is withheld, tension lingers. That lingering tension consumes attention, drains energy, and distorts judgment. Denying closure is not cruelty. It is strategic withdrawal from psychological exchange. Enemies do not always seek victory. Often, they seek explanation. They want acknowledgement, reaction, or recognition. Any form of conclusion reassures them that influence still exists. When you remove access without explanation, the loop remains open. An open loop is not neutral. It pulls focus inward repeatedly. The enemy begins replaying events, searching for meaning that does not exist. Anger burns quickly. Confusion does not. Anger releases energy. Uncertainty traps it. Machiavelli understood that punishment can end conflict, but ambiguity prolongs dominance. When there is no clear ending, the mind continues working long after interaction has stopped. This continued effort benefits only one side, the one who is absent. Closure also restores hierarchy. When you explain, justify, or clarify, you acknowledge the other party's authority to judge. That acknowledgement elevates them. Denial of closure removes that elevation. It communicates, without words, that their understanding is unnecessary. Irrelevance is more destabilizing than opposition. Silence after engagement has a different effect than silence before it. After engagement, absence feels intentional. It feels final without being explained. This combination is powerful. It creates a void where meaning should be. The enemy fills that void with self-generated narratives. Those narratives often turn inward. Doubt replaces certainty. Machiavelli recognized that those who crave resolution are easy to control. They chase answers. They reveal desperation through persistence. Every attempt to regain access exposes need. Need reverses power. The one who wants closure is already beneath the one who denies it. There is a temptation to resolve matters cleanly, to finish conversations, to explain motives, to clarify misunderstandings. This temptation comes from empathy, not strategy. Machiavellian power resists this urge because clarity benefits the listener more than the speaker. When clarity is denied, leverage remains intact. Once closure is withheld, consistency becomes critical. A single explanation destroys the effect. The mind resets. The loop closes. Control dissolves. Denial must be complete and sustained. Partial closure invites renewed pursuit. Full denial ends it silently. Unresolved situations create obsession. Obsession narrows perception. Narrowed perception leads to error. Enemies begin interpreting unrelated events as signals. They overanalyze. They misread neutrality as intent. This distortion weakens their ability to act effectively elsewhere. Their focus becomes misallocated. Machiavelli understood that power does not require presence. It requires impact. Denying closure allows impact to persist without effort. The enemy continues engaging alone. You remain untouched. This asymmetry is dominance. There is also protection in denial. By refusing explanation, you protect internal reasoning. Motives remain private. Intent remains concealed. Concealment prevents counter-strategy. What cannot be understood cannot be anticipated. Closure also creates emotional release. Release allows movement. Denial traps emotion. Trapped emotion seeks outlet. That outlet often appears as escalation, overreach, or exposure. Each reveals more than intended. Each weakens position. Indifference is often mistaken for apathy. In strategy, indifference is insulation. It removes incentive. Without incentive, manipulation collapses. The enemy cannot progress because there is nothing to respond to. They are stalled internally. Machiavelli advised rulers to withdraw favor without explanation, because explanation invites resistance. Silence ends negotiation. Denial ends pursuit. When closure is unavailable, engagement eventually stops, but not before imbalance has done its work. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I owe no closure. Number 7. Reach psychological untouchability. The final stage of dominance is not confrontation, it is separation. Machiavelli understood that the highest form of control is achieved when influence fails entirely. Psychological untouchability is not isolation from the world. It is insulation from interference. When external forces can no longer shape internal direction, power stabilizes. At this stage, identity becomes internally complete. Actions no longer require validation. Decisions no longer depend on approval. Behavior flows from structure, not stimulus. Enemies sense this shift immediately. Their usual methods lose traction. Provocation falls flat. Delay has no effect. Escalation produces no movement. Without response, influence dies. Untouchability changes dynamics without announcement. The absence of reaction communicates finality. There is no tension to exploit, no emotion to access, no expectation to break. This stillness is not passive. It is resolved. Machiavelli recognized that those who appear unmoved cannot be managed because management requires adjustment. Adjustment requires motion. When enemies lose access, they often increase intensity. This escalation is not strength, it is loss of relevance. They push harder because the usual signals are gone. Their behavior becomes visible. Visibility removes advantage. The quiet individual becomes the reference point. Others adjust around them. Psychological untouchability also eliminates internal conflict. When motives are clear internally, external noise loses power. Confusion fades. Clarity emerges. This clarity creates consistency. Consistency reinforces authority. Authority does not need to assert itself. It is recognized through calm presence. Machiavelli understood that power endures when it is not contested. Contest invites exposure. Withdrawal from contest removes the battlefield entirely. When you are no longer part of the enemy's equation, they cannot win or lose against you. They simply become irrelevant. This stage also protects energy. Engagement consumes resources. Untouchability conserves them. While others react, explain, and defend, you move forward. Progress becomes asymmetric. Distance grows quietly. The gap becomes insurmountable. There is a misconception that untouchability requires emotional numbness. It does not. It requires selectivity. Emotions exist, but they are not available for external use. They are private. Privacy is power. What is private cannot be weaponized. Machiavellian dominance is often mistaken for aggression. In truth, it is restraint guided by understanding. Understanding removes urgency. Urgency invites error. When urgency disappears, precision replaces it. Precision shapes outcomes. Enemies eventually stop attempting influence because effort produces nothing. Silence greets pressure. Stillness meets escalation. Absence follows intrusion. The cost-benefit equation collapses. Without return, investment ends. Influence starves. Psychological untouchability also reshapes self-perception. Confidence no longer needs reinforcement. Strength no longer seeks display. Calm replaces tension. This internal alignment is visible externally. Others sense it without explanation. Respect follows naturally. Machiavelli warned that those who depend on external approval remain vulnerable. Dependency creates access. Access invites control. Untouchability severs this chain. Once severed, it cannot be repaired without consent. Consent is never given. At this level, conflict ends before it begins. Influence attempts fail silently. The enemy does not feel defeated. They feel disconnected. Disconnection is final. There is nothing to argue with, nothing to provoke, nothing to reach. This is the highest victory Machiavelli implied, though he rarely stated it directly. Not dominance through force, not triumph through display, but freedom from manipulation, freedom from reaction, freedom from psychological reach. When you reach this stage, you do not need to win. You are no longer being played. Power is rarely in what you take. It is in what cannot be taken. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Most people chase influence as if it were a prize. They argue, explain, justify, and exhaust themselves in the pursuit of control that was never theirs to hold. True mastery is the opposite. It is inaccessibility. It is a position so stable that attempts to disturb it fail before they begin. The enemy orbits you. You do not orbit them. Influence is not seized. It is denied. Victory is not measured in the collapse of others, but in your immunity to collapse. When your mind is untouchable, provocation becomes irrelevant. Anger, fear, or desire cannot move you because you are anchored internally. Your identity, your choices, and your responses belong solely to you. This is why Machiavelli insisted that rulers must never show weakness. Weakness invites probing. Strength hides itself behind stillness. The untouchable mind is unreadable, unmovable, and unassailable. Every strategy you have learned in this video contributes to this state. Refusing reaction, mastering silence, controlling time, breaking expectation, and denying closure are not tactics to win arguments or dominate people. They are tactics to remove yourself from the equation entirely. The one who cannot be manipulated, predicted, or provoked operates above the battlefield. Their victories are invisible but absolute. They dictate without movement, influence without effort, and remain untouched while the world spins around them. You do not need to justify, explain, or prove yourself. Validation is irrelevant. Approval is unnecessary. The highest form of power is when engagement is optional, not required. When the enemy escalates, they expose themselves. When they wait, they reveal dependence. And in both cases, your position remains intact. Silence, stillness, and strategic restraint are the ultimate weapons. They require discipline, patience, and understanding. If you apply these principles, you will notice a profound change. People will miscalculate your moves. Attempts to provoke will fail. Emotional traps will be ineffective. You will move freely, think clearly, and act deliberately. Conflict no longer controls you. You control its context. This is not domination, it is liberation. Before we end, if you found this video valuable, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment below with the affirmation, "I am untouchable." Every time you reinforce this mindset, you strengthen the armor of your mind. Power is not in what you destroy. It is in what cannot touch you. When influence ends, conflict ends. When conflict ends, freedom begins. Be untouchable, be strategic, be invisible. And remember, the highest victory is not defeating your enemies. It is becoming impossible for them to reach.